Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to Quest for You. This is episode 226. So glad you joined, and let's do this. Another episode. Starting out with a quote. By 3 methods, we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is the most bitter. It's by Confucius. What a great quote. Isn't it true that the experiences life throws at us are the hardest to swallow? Yet, how often is it that this is how we learn? Through mistakes and unforeseen events. But Confucius suggests a better route to us. Self-reflection. Topic of this episode can, according to him, help us learn in a nobler way. What is self-reflection? Sounds like something only philosophers do. Or not? Is it a formal process? These are some of the questions I've asked myself when I decided to incorporate it more into my life. But I want to be straightforward with you. It wasn't an active decision I made, like, let's set some time aside for self-reflection. I already have a hard time getting the things done I really want to do, like meditation and yoga. It would be unrealistic for me to commit more of my very limited time to something that will most likely not get done. But yet, I reflect more now than I ever used to. I was always a bit of an impulsive person, and maybe I still am. I said that what needed to be said in the moment, not thinking about it much, just trying to get it out. Over time, I learned the power that lies in contemplating a thought first before acting on it. I noticed how the thought changes with time, and a so-called seasoned thought brings often better outcomes than an immediate reaction. And that is what Confucius refers to when he calls self-reflection noble. Learning has occurred because I took the time to consider my thoughts and responses prior to acting. At its simplest, self-reflection is about careful thought. It's conscious consideration and analysis of beliefs and actions for the purposes of gaining better insight and determining the proper course of action. Reflection is hitting the pause button, so the brain has an opportunity to rest and look at everything in a less emotional and stressed manner. It can now sort through observations and experiences, consider multiple possible interpretations, and create meaning around them. This meaning becomes learning and wisdom, which can then drive future mindsets and actions. When life throws circumstances at us that force us to react, we often don't have the opportunity or time to reflect about them. That is why some of our experiences can be considered as bitter. They hurt, emotionally and sometimes physically. Self-reflection isn't just extra time to think about a proper email response or prepare for a difficult conversation. Self-reflection is training and preparation for difficult times. It's a deep analysis of the angry outbursts that always end in strained relationships and broken class. It's a careful consideration of why you feel jealous when your partner doesn't text back right away. It's a contemplation of your negative emotions when others post content about the political situation. Analyzing why and how you respond in a way that tends to lead to negative emotions and outcomes, that is self-reflection. Instead of a friend asking you, why did you respond that way? You just ask yourself. You look at the circumstances that trigger the reactions, and you ask why a lot. You consider alternate responses and perspectives. You spend time with yourself. Not to judge yourself and beat yourself up, but to ask yourself in a gentle way about the meaning of your thoughts and reactions, just like a good friend would do. Self-reflection is introspection. It's time where you look within to get to know your motives. So often, we are on autopilot. We pick up behaviors all along the way and sometimes don't even notice when we exhibit them. So a frequent check-in with yourself is necessary to detect when something is not working. And you know when it's not because it's bringing you negative experiences. Self-reflection is self-correction. The more consistent you are with checking in with yourself in regards to a certain belief or behavior, the higher the likelihood that you're going to change something about it. Many of us do this intuitively. We sit in a car after an intense meeting at work and we replay the words and events over and over in our mind, trying to decipher their meaning, rethinking our own reactions and wondering about possible consequences. Or the argument with a loved one the night before that keeps bugging us all day while at the office. And then we think of alternatives and maybe approach the next situation differently. But just as often, we ignore the necessary self-check-in. We blew up again. Oh well, nothing can be done. We blame someone else or we think it can't be changed. Those are the bitter experiences Confucius mentions that will continue to happen to us if we don't begin to reflect on them. If a close person in your life always gets defensive when you bring up a specific subject, there's an opportunity for self-reflection. When you get angry or anxious or nervous in a certain circumstance, it's time for a check-in. When you are avoiding a conversation or topic, it would be a good time to contemplate on that. These are just examples of situations that can lead to self-reflection. Sometimes we take self-reflection too far. We obsess over certain events which can lead to stress and anxiety. And that is not healthy self-reflection. Rather, it's an intentional but not forced contemplation of events that took place or may take place in the future. Intentional means you make a mental note to take the time to think about this. I don't force it when the time is not right. And often it is not right. The right time almost always requires waiting until you're alone and without distraction, in a space that gives you a chance to take a break, like the car. I turn off the radio at times on purpose to have time to think. Or I get up and go to my favorite coffee shop with my journal in hand and sit for an hour and write about it. Sometimes I wait until I see a certain friend that I know will help me with my perspective. Talking your thoughts out loud to someone can be a form of self-reflection. Putting things into words helps me a lot, whether those are written or spoken. And sometimes I even talk to myself, for example in my car. Here are some helpful questions that you can use to trigger your reflection time. Am I spending my time wisely? Am I being selfish here and taking things for granted? Is this a healthy perspective? Am I living true to myself? Am I putting enough effort into this? Is this in line with my goals and values? And the biggest one for me that I often ask, is this what I really want? Because so often I head straight forward into a direction without even thinking. I buy something I don't use later. I commit to plans that I later regret. I answer without first thinking. Self-reflection doesn't have to be an hour every day in the car. It can be just a quick check-in before you are about to make a decision. Simply asking, is this what I want? Is sometimes all it takes to realign yourself with your values before heading down the wrong track. It does not have to be a formal process or a dedicated time. For me, it's often triggered by events, when I'm about to make a critical decision, or after I acted in a way that didn't make me happy, or that triggered a response in someone else that didn't make me happy. Before, I waved it off. What do they know? I'm right. I know what I'm doing. I thought I had a right to say what comes to my mind and when I felt like it. Now I take time to think. I check in with myself. I take the responses and reactions from others as feedback for what's working and what needs improvement. And I try to make changes, sometimes in the form of small pacts I make with myself. Next time this happens, you will do X, not Y. And sometimes it does take a few test runs. But without self-reflection, there's little learning from mistakes. And more importantly, there's little preparing for when things get worse. And as you know, they always get worse. Life has many obstacles, but how we deal with them is often the result of how well we prepare on the smaller, less significant obstacles along the way. And I really like this quote from Marianne Williamson. It takes courage to endure the sharp pains of self-discovery rather than choose to take the dull pain of unconsciousness that would last the rest of our lives. And that self-discovery, my friends, is obtained through self-reflection. That's where you can start. Much love. Speak to you soon.